Folks, I'm so proud to introduce you to a very special friend of mine, a former Texas Ranger who epitomizes the image of a Texas Ranger. Lives out in Alpine, Texas now. His name is Joaquine Jackson. And Joaquine, I'm so proud you took the time to come and visit with us.
Always good to visit with you, Red.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, always is.
You know, we got some books here I want to talk about in a little bit where you tell nearly all of your stories.
That's right.
But, you know, I want to know, and I want the folks to know who are watching us in places where they don't have Texas Rangers, how the Ranger Service got started, how old it is, and why it's still important.
Well, the Ranger Service is the oldest state police organization in the world. Unofficially, it was created in 1823 by Stephen F. Austin, who hired 10 men out of his own pocket to protect the settlers against the Indians. In about 1835, they were formally organized. The Rangers were as a frontier battalion, and they went different directions in Texas. Some down towards the border, protect the border. Or the Mexicans thought, you know, from the Nueces River. Even after the battle or the fight, when we become an independent, become a republic, they thought that the Nueces River was the boundaries and it wasn't, which later was it was the Rio Grande. And then the other battalions went north and northwest, fighting the Comanche and the Kiowa and the various Indian tribes. And in 1875, the Rangers become peace officers, and the first thing that was given them when they become peace officers was a little black book that listed wanted people. I think several hundred names are in that book that they carried with them, people that were wanted in different various parts of the country. Then in 1935, the Rangers had always been under the Adjutant General's office, in which the National Guard and the State Guard's under. And 1935, the legislation created the Texas Department of Public Safety. And the Texas Highway Patrol was 5 years old, and they were on the Texas Highway Department. And then the Rangers were moved from under the Adjutant General's office over to the newly created Texas Department of Public Safety. And so that made up the nucleus of the DPS, of the Rangers and the Texas Highway Patrol. And so in a first director of the DPS, a fellow named Ferris, and then a year and a half, 2 years later, along come a fellow by the name of Homer Garrison. And Homer Garrison loved the Rangers, and he took his Rangers kind of under his wing and started training them in modern day forensic criminal investigative techniques and things to that end, and got them to be what they are today: well trained, well disciplined, one of the top investigators in the criminal investigators. And
do you have some stories that you can tell us?
Well, you know, I've got lots of stories, Red. You know, you and I have talked before, and I spent a lot of time as a Ranger on the border, and I was in Uvalde for 21 years, and I spent a lot of time down in Mexico after fugitives, and I went down after a couple of guys one time that had murdered another. They were all illegal when they were working on a ranch, and they killed an old man and robbed him, these two young boys, and fled to Mexico. And I went down into Mexico, and I got acquainted with a guy named Felipe Zamora, who was a comandante of the Granadero, which is like the Cattle Raisers Association. He was actually he's a captain, he's state police. He really had a state police commission. And I met another guy named Hinka Tinka Flores, if you can imagine that. Hinka Tinka being an Aztec name. And when I done my book, I had to go back and get my reports out and see how to spell it. And someone else had spelled it for me. Hinka Tinka is quite a handle. But these guys I worked with down there, and it was I'd go into Mexico in those days in the state car, fully equipped with all my equipment, all my weapons. I had automatic weapons. I had a couple of automatic weapons. I had several handgun I wore, and a couple of other handguns, plenty of ammunition. I had C rations. That was before these MREs come out, you know, and I had the old time C rations I carried. And I carried a coffee pot and a bedroll, and so wherever I got caught up, you know, that's where I could, if I had to camp. I made a camp, and but anyway, I went into Mexico in that state vehicle with all that stuff in it, and if you couldn't do that today. I mean, no Ranger. You drive across that line now in a state vehicle. First, they're going to seize your vehicle, and they're going to throw you in jail. But it's different then. That was in the '60s and '70s, and the '80s. But it's a whole different ball game today. You know, go on and talk about stories.
Oh,
like
I know you've got some wonderful stories, but Joaquine has 2 books. One Ranger was his first one, and it's in the 12th printing, and it is a fantastic book. And the other book is called
One Ranger
Ranger Returns,
and
it's a great book also.
The reason I've done the second book is because people said the only thing wrong with the first book, it ended too quick. So, and now I've got them after me. They want me to do a third book, and I'm not going to never say never. You've probably learned that too, never to say never.
Joaquine, thank you so much for coming and visiting
Red.
with us. It's always good to see you.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Same
sir.
here. You folks stop by your local newsstand and pick up the latest edition of Cowboys and Indians magazine.